It's game time again. Like and subscribe to stay ahead with all our content. This is a book move. The opening is called Queen's Pawn Game.
Knight to f6.
This is a book move. The opening is called Indian Defense Normal Variation.
This is a book move. The opening is called Indian Defense, Budapest Defense.
Pawn captures on e5 is best. This attacks the knight. This captures a free pawn.
This is a book move. The opening is called Indian Defense, Budapest Defense.
Pawn to e4 is the best move.
Attacking the kingside pawn, preparing to develop the kingside pieces, and potentially creating a weakness on the kingside. This move is a common part of the Budapest defense, aiming to challenge black's control of the kingside.
Knight to f3 is the best move.
Developing the knight to a strong central square, supporting the pawn on pawn to e5 and preparing to control the pawn to d5 square, while also eyeing the kingside and potential weaknesses on the queenside.
Queen to e4 pins the knight on g4, preparing to develop the rest of the pieces and putting pressure on black's position.
Knight to h6.
Developing the knight to a strong central square, preparing to control the pawn to d5 square and potentially pinning black's knight on c6.
Bishop to b4 is best. This develops a bishop. This pins a piece of the opponent to their king.
Preparing to develop the queenside pawns and potentially create a pass pawn on the queenside. Pawn to 3 also pins the knight on b4, forcing jack to potentially weaken his pawn structure.
Bishop captures on c3, check is the best move.
I played pawn captures on c3 to challenge black's pawn structure and create space for my pieces to develop. The pin on black's knight on pawn to c6 is also a consideration, as it will weaken black's pawn center and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside.
Queen to e7.
Knight to f3.
Pawn to f6.
Force pin on black's knight, preparing to launch a strong attack on the kingside. This move also puts pressure on black's pawn structure, making it difficult for them to defend against the impending attack.
Queen to f7 is a strong move that puts pressure on black's position, threatening to attack the king and queen. It also pins black's knight on f6, gaining a strategic advantage.
Queen captures on f7 check is the best move.
King captures on f7.
I played pawn captures on f6 to challenge black's pawn structure and create a potential weakness on the kingside. By exchanging pawns, I also opened up the f-file for my rook to potentially use later in the game.
Pawn captures on f6 is best.
Knight to d4 is excellent. This offers a trade. Pawn to c5 is best.
Pawn to e6.
Knight captures on c6 is good. This is a trade. Pawn to e4 is best.
Pawn captures on c6 is good. Pawn captures on c6 is best.
Bishop to f4 is the best move.
Bishop to e6 is best. This attacks the pawn. This develops a bishop.
I played pawn to c5 to challenge black's pawn structure and prepare for potential pawn breaks on the queenside. The move also pins black's knight on c6, making it harder for them to develop their pieces.
Pawn to b6.
Bishop captures on c7 is excellent. This attacks the pawn. This move gains a tempo. Pawn to e4 is best.
Pawn captures on c5 is best. This captures a free pawn.
Rook to b1.
Rook from file h to e8 is the best move.
Pawn to e4 is the best move.
Knight to h4 is good. Rook to f7 is best. This attacks the bishop. This develops a rook. This move gains a tempo.
Preparing to develop the kingside, bishop to g3 attacks the kingside pawn and prepares to potentially play d4, putting pressure on black's position and controlling the center.
Knight to g6 is a strong move that attacks the kingside pawn structure, preparing to develop the rest of the pieces and putting pressure on black's position. It also pins the knight on g4, making it difficult for black to defend against the potential attack on the kingside.
Rook to b7 check is best.
King to a8 is good. King to g8 is best.
Rook to b6 is good. This attacks the pawn. Pawn to h4 is best.
Attacking black's knight, preparing to develop the rest of the pieces and putting pressure on the kingside. The move also pins black's queen on f7, making it difficult for them to move without exposing their king to attack.
Attacking the black pawn on pawn to e5 with the bishop, creating a strong initiative and putting pressure on the kingside. This move also opens up the d-file for the rook to potentially use later.
Attacking the black pawn on pawn to e5 with the knight, creating a strong initiative and putting pressure on the black position, while also opening lines for the rooks to potentially attack the black king.
I played rook captures on c6 to gain a strong initiative on the queen side, attacking black's pawn on pawn to c5 and preparing to launch a potential pawn storm. The pin on black's knight on pawn to c6 also puts pressure on their position.
King to d7.
Rook captures on c5.
King to d6 is a calm and positional move, supporting the pawn on pawn to d5 and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. It also slightly weakens the king side, but the overall pawn structure is still solid.
Rook to f5 is a strong move, attacking black's pawn on pawn to e5 and preparing to potentially push pawn to d4 to d5, gaining control of the center and putting pressure on black's position.
Rook from file h to b8.
Bishop to d3 is the best move.
Rook to b2 is the best move.
King to d2.
Rook to b2 check.
King to e3 is a solid move, supporting the central pawn and preparing to develop the rest of the pieces. It also pins the knight on g4, making it difficult for black to attack the kingside.
Bishop captures on d3 is best. This is a trade.
Forcing check on black's gain, attacking their pawn on f5, and preparing to potentially push d4 d5, putting pressure on black's position and creating a strong initiative.
King to e6.
Rook captures on d3 pins the black knight on f5, preparing to launch a potential attack on the kingside. This move also opens up the d-file for the rook to potentially use in the future.
Rook to f8 is a weak move, as it doesn't create any threats or pins. It's a passive move that doesn't contribute to the attack on black's position. A more aggressive move would have been preferred to take advantage of the open lines and create more attacking chances.
Rook to f1 pinning black's knight on f5, preparing to launch a kingside attack and putting pressure on black's position. The game is over. White wins.